Hi, I'm Alicia Belant, and I'm here to discuss my applied research project for the Doctor of Athletic Training degree granted by A.T. Still University. The title of my project is The Perceptions of Professional Athletic Training Program Graduates on Their Clinical Education Experiences. The idea for this project has been a topic of interest of mine for quite some time. Since I have been working with athletic training students, I have always been passionate about the quality of their clinical education and have been cognizant about teaching it in a meaningful way so that they may then take these skills and lessons learned and apply them in a professional capacity. When I entered into the DAT program, I knew pretty quickly what route I wanted to go with my applied research project. It was just a matter of refining what direction I wanted to go with it. Ultimately, I had boiled it down to how can athletic training education be improved? There are a number of thoughts regarding this and even steps that have already been taken, but I wanted a different approach. I wanted to know what graduates from these programs thought about their education. Who better to ask them about the education than the ones receiving it? We know new graduates rely heavily on the skills they learn in educational and clinical experiences. Walker and Mazzarol have identified 4 major themes surrounding the transition to practice, which includes mentoring, preceptorship, orientation, and assistantship. Both newly certified athletic training professionals and post-professional athletic training program directors alike find mentoring, preceptorship, and professional and organizational orientations beneficial for easing the transition from student to professional. Program directors have found graduate assistantships advantageous for newly certified individuals to help build independent thinking and a way to convey professional role engagement. Both program directors and newly certified athletic trainers feel preparation for transition to practice to either have been an aid or a barrier to successful transition. Both groups identified that a lack of diverse clinical educational experiences where learning opportunities and independence were not given by the preceptor made the transition more difficult because students were less prepared to act as autonomous professionals. Conversely, both groups felt diversified clinical experiences in addition to preceptors who allowed for growth and independent thought and decision making found making the transition much smoother. To better appreciate this transition process from student to autonomous professional, we must first better understand the perceptions newly certified individuals have on their previous clinical education experiences as students. There is currently a lack of evidence to support how clinical education experience directly relate to autonomous professional practice of an athletic trainer. Clinical rotations are central to education of the athletic training student, and there may be gaps in education within these rotations that ultimately limit new professionals' transition from classroom to practice. The purpose of my project is to help determine if new athletic training professionals perceive there was an educational gap between the classroom, clinical rotations, and their perceptions of the direct impact these had on transitioning from student to autonomous clinical practice. After getting my research project approved, it was to be decided how to collect the perceptions of these graduates. The pros and cons of phone interviews and survey methods were discussed at length, with these being the primary pros and cons for each method. My first instinct was to disseminate a survey because I thought I could potentially get more participants. However, I could potentially get better quality information from an interview. The decision ultimately came down to timing, and conducting interviews was no longer feasible in order to analyze them to determine the results. At that point, the focus of my applied research project then became developing and validating a survey instrument that could be used to collect this qualitative data from participants in the future. The development of survey instrumentation should follow 4 general stages: defining the constructs and content domain, generating and assessing measurement items, designing and conducting pilot studies, and finalizing the survey. The process for my survey naturally broke down into 3 phases, which were survey development, content validity assessment, and face validity and reliability assessment. These phases capture the survey development stages in a natural order. Phase 1 captures the first stage, in which the constructs and content domains are defined. Phase 2 primarily consists of Stage 2, which is generating and assessing the survey measurement items. Phase 3 comprises stages 3 and 4, designing and conducting a pilot study and finalizing the survey. Phase 1 and Stage 1 consist of performing a literature search to establish a deep understanding of content and to establish if there is an applicable instrument available for use. In a literature search, there was no pre-existing validated instrument available that would fit the aim of the study. Therefore, a survey was developed. Stage 2 of the development process consists of the generation of questions appropriate for the overarching aims of the survey. The qualitative survey was developed by the research team, which included myself, Dr. Bacon, Dr. Walker from Ball State University, and Dr. Cavalario from Old Dominion University, with the goal of achieving the overarching aims of the study. The initial survey consisted of only 4 open-ended questions and no demographics questions. 1 demographics item was added, which asked the participant to list their age, date of graduation, state in which the athletic training program was located, and the division of the athletics program. This single demographic question was then revised and broken down into 3 separate demographics questions, with the addition of 4 new demographics questions relating to the clinical rotations and current employment. Each question had all possible answers available for the participant to choose and what was most appropriate for their response. The original 4 open-ended questions remained in this 3rd draft of the qualitative survey. The survey was then revised into a 4th draft with an emphasis on accurate verbiage to better reflect the overarching aims of the study. There were also sub-questions added to the open-ended questions to assist the participant giving the most accurate answer possible. The 4th draft was then sent to our expert panel for content validity review. A panel of experts in the field assess for content validity, clarity, readability, and recommend appropriate changes. Dr. Thrasher from AT Still University and Dr. Eberman from Indiana State University were enlisted to provide feedback regarding appropriateness of the survey items and to assess for content validity. They were presented a draft of the survey and asked to render their expert professional opinions. Following the establishment of face and content validity, it is imperative to ensure that the survey is psychometrically sound by conducting a pilot test, which satisfied stage 3 of the requirements. For the pilot study, the survey was built utilizing the Qualtrics program platform and was emailed to post-professional master students at AT Still University. 10 students completed the survey. Feedback was positive and there were no major changes that needed to be made. The final version of my survey consisted of 7 demographic questions and 4 open-ended questions. We will begin with the demographics portion. It should be known that there are no questions that eliminate a participant, as the information could still be valuable. Number 1, did you graduate from a professional graduate athletic training program? Number 2, what year did you graduate from your professional graduate athletic training program? Number 3, what sports and/or settings were your clinical rotations? Please list the setting first, followed by the sport when applicable. Number 4, are you currently employed as an athletic trainer? Demographics continued. Number 5, are you currently employed as an athletic trainer? How long have you been at your current job? Number 6, if you are currently employed as an athletic trainer, what setting is your current job? Number 7, please specify your age and the gender you identify with. And then on to the main questions. Number 1, reflecting on your professional practice thus far, do you feel your clinical education experiences prepared you for autonomous clinical practice? If yes, in what ways do you feel your clinical education experiences prepared you for autonomous clinical practice? If yes, please also describe the most influential clinical education experience that prepared you for practicing as a professional. If no, please describe why you feel your clinical education experiences did not prepare you for autonomous clinical practice. Question number 2. Do you feel your clinical preceptors had a large role in your preparation for autonomous clinical practice? If yes, in what ways do you feel your clinical preceptors prepared you for autonomous clinical practice? If no, please describe why you feel your preceptors did not have an influential role in your preparation for autonomous clinical practice. And then the main questions continued. Number 3, is there an area of your professional practice that you did not learn about as a part of your clinical education or clinical experience during your time as a professional athletic training student? Yes or no? If yes, please explain which areas you feel you did not feel prepared. And how did you come to realize you were unprepared in these areas? If no, please explain the areas where you felt best prepared and the areas you felt least prepared. Number 4, if you could go back and change your clinical experiences to prepare you for your professional practice, how would you change it? The focus of my applied research project turned out to be focused on creating and validating a survey instrument. I will take this instrument and will utilize it in extracurricular research with ATSU in these upcoming blocks. Contact information for a participant pool will be obtained from the Board of Certification. They will be sent an email with a link to the survey and will be allowed 4 to 6 weeks to respond. Once responses are collected, analysis can begin. This will include 4 stages of analysis: identifying initial code domains, extracting core ideas from each domain, cross-analysis of multiple participant surveys via the development of categories, and establishing the frequency of data presented in the determined categories. The hope is by identifying these gaps, discussion can begin about how to bridge the perceived gaps between clinical education and autonomous clinical practice. Once the final manuscript is completed, it will be submitted to the Journal of Athletic Training Education. Thank you for your time.